Bobby Carter lived a life most people only dreamed of. He had a sprawling mansion in Beverly Hills, a fleet of luxury cars, and private parties that went on all night. But behind the glittering lifestyle, things weren't perfect. Arguments with his parents, Richard and Linda Carter, had become unbearable. One evening, after a heated argument over family matters, Bobby was kicked out of his own home. Homeless and confused, he wandered the streets of Los Angeles, wondering how his life had changed so quickly. One sunny afternoon, while sitting in a small cafe in Santa Monica, Bobby met Emily Johnson. She was cheerful, kind, and had a way of making him forget his troubles. They laughed, shared stories, and somehow felt an instant connection. Life suddenly felt simpler and happier. Before long, they agreed to get married, but it was a contract marriage, simple and without complicated promises. Bobby had no idea that even though he had been kicked out, he was still incredibly wealthy. His family's fortune was hidden in legal trusts he knew nothing about. For now, Bobby's life seemed ordinary, modest, and surprisingly peaceful. But little did he know, his hidden fortune and his family's secrets were waiting to change everything. 2 weeks after meeting at the cafe, Bobby Carter and Emily Johnson stood in a small courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. No big wedding, no guests, no drama, just a simple contract marriage. Emily needed stability, and Bobby needed a fresh start. It felt like a fair deal. They moved into a small apartment in Pasadena. It was nothing like Bobby's old mansion, but strangely, he felt peaceful. Emily worked as a junior interior designer, and Bobby picked up part-time work at a local auto garage. For the first time in his life, he was living like a normal person. But something about Bobby didn't match his lifestyle. He had perfect manners, spoke with confidence, and understood business terms like a professional. Emily often noticed and joked, "Bobby, you talk like a CEO, not a mechanic." Bobby would just smile. "Maybe in my past life." Meanwhile, across the city, Richard Carter was furious. After throwing Bobby out, he realized something dangerous. Bobby's name was still linked to several trust funds and properties. If Bobby ever found out, he could legally claim millions. Richard turned to his lawyer and said coldly, "Fine him." Before he finds out the truth, back in the small apartment, Emily placed 2 cups of coffee on the table and looked at Bobby. "You know, our marriage is fake, but this feeling doesn't feel fake." Bobby froze for a second. He felt it too, but didn't know what to say. Outside their apartment, a black luxury car slowly stopped, and someone inside was watching. The game had begun. The black luxury car stayed parked across the street for hours. Inside sat Mark Reynolds, a private investigator hired by Richard Carter. His job was simple: watch Bobby, report everything, and wait for the right moment. That evening, Bobby returned home, tired from work. Emily was cooking dinner, humming softly. For a moment, life felt normal to normal for a man who once owned half of Beverly Hills. During dinner, Emily finally spoke what had been on her mind for days. "Bobby, can I ask you something honestly?" "Of course," he replied. "Sometimes it feels like you're hiding something. You don't live like a rich man, but you think like one." Bobby went silent. Memories flooded back his mansion, his father's cold eyes, the night he was thrown out. "I had a complicated past," he said slowly. "That's all." Emily nodded, but her eyes showed doubt. The next morning, Bobby received a strange call from an unknown number. "Mr. Bobby Carter." A serious voice said, "You are legally listed as a beneficiary to multiple Carter family trusts. You need to come in." Bobby's heart stopped. At the office downtown, the lawyer laid out documents worth millions of dollars, properties, shares, and accounts, all under Bobby's name. "You were never broke," the lawyer said. "You just didn't know." shaken. Bobby stepped outside. His entire life suddenly felt like a lie. Across the street, Mark Reynolds made the call. "Sir, Bobby knows now." That same night, Emily found an envelope slipped under their apartment door. Inside were legal papers and a photo of Bobby standing outside a luxury office building. She confronted him immediately. "Tell me the truth, Bobby. Who are you really?" Bobby looked at her, his voice heavy. "I was born rich. I was thrown out. And I married you without knowing I still had everything." Emily stepped back, hurt and confused. "So our marriage, was it all fake?" Before Bobby could answer, the doorbell rang. When he opened the door, Richard Carter stood there cold, powerful, and smiling. "Son," he said, "it's time to come home." Richard Carter stood at the door like a shadow from the past, powerful, calm, and dangerous. His expensive suit and cold smile reminded Bobby of everything he had escaped. "Come back home," Richard said. "This life isn't for you. You belong with us." Emily watched silently, her heart racing. Just hours ago, she had discovered that her husband wasn't an ordinary man, but an heir to millions. Bobby took a deep breath. "I built a new life," he said. "I'm not the same person anymore." Richard laughed softly. "People like us don't change. You were born into power." That night, Richard invited Bobby to a formal business dinner in Manhattan. It was a test, a choice. Emily didn't want him to go, but she said nothing. She was afraid of what he might choose. At the dinner, Bobby was surrounded by wealthy investors, CEOs, and old family friends. Strangely, he fit in perfectly. He spoke confidently, negotiated deals, and impressed everyone in the room. Richard watched proudly. "You see," he whispered, "this is your world." But later that night, Bobby returned to the small apartment and found Emily packing her bag. "I don't know where I fit in your life anymore," she said, her voice shaking. "Our marriage started as a contract, but my feelings became real." Bobby's heart broke. "Emily, money doesn't change what I feel." Before she could answer, Bobby's phone rang again. A message appeared. "Tomorrow morning, you must sign the papers or lose everything." Bobby looked at Emily, then at the phone. By sunrise, he would have to choose a life of power and wealth or a life built on love and truth. The sun had barely risen over Los Angeles when Bobby Carter sat alone in the living room. The legal documents spread across the table. One signature would return him to a world of power, wealth, and control. No signature would mean losing everything he never knew he still owned. Emily stood by the window, her suitcase beside her. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your future," she said softly. Bobby looked at her. "You are my future." Just then, Richard Carter's lawyer arrived. Calm, confident, ruthless. "Mr. Carter," he said, "this offer expires today." Bobby picked up the pen. His hand trembled. Images flashed through his mind: his mansion, his family's cold faces, the night he was thrown out. Then he remembered the cafe, the small apartment, Emily's smile. Slowly, Bobby put the pen down. "I'm not signing," he said firmly. "I choose my life. I choose her." The lawyer's smile disappeared. "You understand what this means?" Bobby nodded. "I lose the money, but I keep my soul." The lawyer left without another word. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "You gave up millions. For me." Bobby held her hands. "I gave up a life that never made me happy." For the first time, their contract marriage felt real. No papers, no conditions. Across the city, Richard Carter received the news. His face darkened. "If he thinks this is over," he said coldly, "he's wrong." That same night, Bobby received a notification on his phone. Emergency court order filed. Emily looked at him, fear in her eyes. "What now?" Bobby took a deep breath. "My family doesn't lose without a fight. Please follow my Facebook page, StoryLoom Hub, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, StoryLoom Hub.